Good evening, everyone. My name is Charlene Kemmler. I am the CEO of the Loveland Foundation, and I am really excited for today's conversation. Money is a conversation that we have been seeing coming up in a lot of our conversations with both our participants and our therapists, and even on our social networks. And we are truly honored that we actually have been able to bring two amazing folks to come here today and talk with us about money, managing money, but also money and mental health, which I think a lot of people don't really think about. But we got Asia Evans, who I'm going to read her bio for you. She's phenomenal. They're both phenomenal. But when you hear the bio, you'll understand why we've brought her here. Asia, thank you again for coming. Asia Evans. Asia Evans is a licensed mental health counselor, speaker, and writer specializing in financial therapy. With over a decade of experience, Asia is determined to get more people engaged in talking about their feelings about money. In addition to her practice, Asia serves on the board of the Financial Therapy Association, consults to fintech companies, and is penning her debut book, Feel Good Finance. Yes, can't wait for that. She has been featured in a variety of major news outlets, including the New York Times, Business Insider, NerdWallet, and CNBC. Asia is on a mission to get more people engaged in living their best lives while attuning to their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors around money. Outside of work, you can find Asia chasing after her two young children as they hunt down the next delicious place to eat. Everyone, please welcome the phenomenal Asia Evans. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, last but not least, we have Dasha Kennedy. Now, a lot of you I know are familiar with her work, but I'm going to go into her bio still. Dasha Kennedy, the innovative mind behind the Broke Black Girl, has emerged as a leading voice in financial activism, focusing particularly on empowering Black women. Through her platform, Kennedy offers relatable and accessible financial advice, aiming to dismantle the financial disparities Black women face. Her work goes beyond basic financial literacy, incorporating elements of social justice to address systemic barriers that hinder economic progress within this community. Before founding The Broke Black Girl, Kennedy's professional journey included roles that gave her firsthand insight into financial challenges, such as working in finance as a default collector, counselor, and accountant. This background, coupled with her personal experience, fueled her dedication to educational finance and empowerment. Since its inception, The Broke Black Girl has grown into a significant social media presence, amassing over 500,000 followers. Kennedy's influence extends to guiding over 70,000 women on their personal finance journeys, demonstrating her platform's profound impact. Her realistic and practical approach and tailored advice resonates with many, making financial success more attainable for those who engage with her content regardless of their income. Thank you both. As you both know, we had a little conversation before we started up. And as I said, we have a lot of panels. This is one I was super excited about because one of the things that as an organization, our biggest thing is we really want to hear from both our participants and also from our therapists. We want to know, what else can we do? What are some topics you want to see the Loveland Foundation cover? Finances was one of those. And it was something that actually made the entire team excited. This is kind of our pilot because we want to do more of these because knowledge is power. And if anybody on my team knows, I go through negotiation 101 with them all the time. I want them to come with the numbers. I want them to be able to feel confident to actually ask for their value and present their value and listen to it. And it's something I wish someone had given to me. It took me actually taking a negotiation course to understand the power of negotiating, the power of money, but also just having the simple basic tools and how even having those simple basic tools really kind of impacts your mental wellness. So this is part of the reason why we were so excited for both of you. Also, we know, Asia, when your book comes out, let us know because we will be promoting that because yes, yes, and yes, please. I'll order 10. There you go. And it is something that I know a lot of people, I'm hoping with where we are seeing the world is going, us being able to give our community and folks the tools that are necessary for them to be successful, not just financially, but mental wise. This is where we're having the generational change. This is what we talk about when we as an organization say our goal, our social mission is to create generational change within the Black community. You are the foundation.
That's
So
it.
again, thank you. Thank you. And you know what? I got too many great questions. So I'm going to jump right into it if you don't mind, because there's so much I want to talk about. And this was really hard to put this in order of which question do I ask first, because there was personal also, but also there was things that I know people want to know about. So the first thing, and I'm going to open this up to actually both of you. How can Black women prioritize self-care and mental health while pursuing financial goals and navigating economic challenges? We see where the world is currently right now. Unfortunately, politics is something that is going to be very present within this entire year. It is going to be the never ending dialogue that we're going to be hearing over and over and over again. Finance is something that we know is a big thing. We as Black women don't even get paid a full whole dollar.
Yep.
So when we're thinking about these things, once again, like how, as Black women, how can we prioritize our self-care and mental health while still trying to pursue those financial goals and navigating these troubling times that we're currently in right now?
I'll start. So I think, first of all, you have to understand, and hi, everybody. You have to understand where you're coming from and how you feel. And majority of the clients that I see are Black women. And what I'm realizing is that, and I'll loop myself in there because it took me a lot of time and some work to do too. We aren't the best at feeling our feelings. And when you don't feel your feelings, you don't realize what level of impact it is having on your life. So if you are stressed out at work, that's going to show when how you show up, how you are potentially treated for promotion, how you then negotiate. Do you negotiate your self-esteem? What do you do to cope when you're not feeling good? And that could be, I'm feeling really anxious, or I'm down today, or I'm sad today. Things are going on with my mental health and my mood. And I think a lot of times people don't realize how frequently they use money to cope with those feelings. And that really can put you in not the best place financially. And I'll let Dasha kind of
elaborate a little bit more on that, because you really hit on something. Because me in my past, in my 20s, will own that was my way of dealing with things. It was like, oh, treat myself here, treat myself there. I'm having a bad day. Now I treat myself to a latte. That's my splurge for myself now. But because, you want to save, because you got to think about, retirement and what that looks like. But please elaborate a little bit more.
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, this is so vast and so huge, and everybody copes however they cope. But spending money feels good. And that dopamine hit also feels really good, especially if you know you're down. And we are, served up consumerism on a platter that says YOLO. It says you deserve it. It says that you should deal with your emotions through retail therapy. And I want to be clear that I'm not saying don't do those things. I just want you to realize why you're doing them. Realizing like, hey, I'm not in the best mood. That's why I want to go scroll whatever, TikTok shop or, my favorite place to go shopping at and just scroll to see what's going on. It's okay if you're choosing to do that. I just don't want it to be your only coping skill. I want you to do something else and then decide, hey, do I have the money to spend on this right now? If I don't, I need to go do something that is free or something that isn't as costly. Like you said, I'm going to go get that latte. And I really, my latest little quip that I've been saying, because it's so, so important, is that what you deserve and what you can afford have nothing to do with each other. And I think we have found a way to connect those two things as if, oh, I deserve to get this Louis back. Yes, you do deserve it, but it doesn't mean that you can afford it. And I think that is kind of, we're getting mixed in the sauce with that. And as humans, we deserve the world. I truly believe as human beings, we deserve everything, but it does not mean that you can afford everything right this second. And it's okay if you have to wait, but I know that is hard. So go for a hot girl walk, take a shower, clean your apartment. I rage clean all the time. If I'm angry, I'm like, I'm gonna clean it up. So those would be my like self-care tips and how you just start to identify when your mental health is kind of starting to veer into your financial behaviors.
Love it. There were some really great gems that you just dropped in. I'm so grateful this is recorded
Yeah.
because we will be taking some of these and definitely be putting it out in the universe and quoting you because I think that's a big thing that people don't realize the difference between want and need.
Yes.
Which is really, really fascinating. And I'm glad that you brought that up. And this actually brings me to, really comes back to you, Desha, when we're thinking about like finances, financial independence, having your finances looking good. What exactly? Because I think people hear this like, I want to be financially free. I want to be financially independent. It's kind of like those buzzwords that you hear.
Yeah.
Can you go into it a little bit more?
Yeah. So when I think of financially independent or what it means to be financially independent, for me, it is having enough money to cover your expenses or having enough income and savings so that you don't need to depend on someone else. That could be your employer, that could be your partner, that could be your family, your children, that could be your parents. It can look like multiple things, but it really is just setting yourself up in a way where you are solely dependent upon yourself. And sometimes it can look like a buzzword and we'll just throw that out there, but we're not actively working towards that. Like we'll be working. We know that we are earning money. We know that we are paying our bills, but is financial independence actually on the list? Is it actually a goal? Are we actually doing something to work towards that? And when I think of working towards that, what it looks like in actionable steps that looks like reducing debt as much as possible, increasing your saving as much as possible, investing wisely, being heavily involved in how you are spending money, why you are spending money. That's something that Asia mentioned earlier. So I think it goes deeper than just saying it. And saying it sounds nice, but for us as Black women, we have to move beyond the aesthetics of it looking nice or sounding nice. It actually has to be nice because in the end, we need that to survive. I need to know in the end that I can take care of myself. That if my job was to change, if my living circumstances was to change, I can be financially independent. And the only way that I find peace or that we find peace in that is to actually do the work, to come away from just saying it because it sounds like what we all should be working towards and making sure we're actually doing the work.
And I really loved how you just really simplified, even though it is very complicated, but you
Yeah.
really simplified just quick little action steps
Yeah.
folks can actually make just in terms of making a financial plan. Think of
Yes.
things that people are afraid of. And it's really just looking at what's going out and what's coming in. And, for me, I'm curious to know, Desha, when you're thinking about savings, because this is something that I think people don't really want to know a little bit more about.
Hmm.
Always say, you're looking for a high yield savings account so that you can put money in, but what percentage would you advise folks of like their paycheck to like really put into a saving so that they do have like, 2 months operating budget if something happens, they have an emergency fund for like 2 months. What would you suggest?
Okay, so the way that I look at this is a little bit different. So my perspective really changed on saving money because of my life circumstances. I am a divorced mom of two boys. So saving a set amount every paycheck, that may not always be feasible. especially when when your household is solely dependent upon your paycheck. I may be able to save 20% for a few weeks, but then I don't want to be married to that idea, because then what happens when I need to cut back and drop it down to 5? I need to be prepared for life at all times. And for me, as a Black woman navigating finances in today's climate, preparation is my secret weapon. Preparation and being flexible. And so I look at this different, because it's okay to be flexible. You don't have to be married to a certain percentage, because at the end of the day, it's going to look different for everyone. I could say 20%, which is something common. You would hear people say, save 20%, but 20% may push someone in the red. It may be feasible for someone else. So at the end of the day, the numbers are what they are. There's no getting around that. We make what we make. We have the expenses that we have. But when we start combing through all of our expenses and we know what's a need and a want, like you mentioned earlier, we can start to figure out how much money we probably can save each month. I always encourage people to save something, even if it's $1. And I know $1 sounds like nothing, but if you were to save $1 every single day for a year, on December 31st, you will have $365. And I challenge people all the time to ask yourself on December 31st, would you want an extra $365? I guarantee everyone would say yes. So that $1, it may seem like nothing when it's just $1, when it's just $2, but it turns into something over time. So for me, it's not necessarily about a percentage or a number. It's what you can do, even if it's a small amount, but be consistent. Because I can't consistently save $20 every single week, and $20 may not seem like nothing, but that's way more powerful than someone that's able to save $100 every now and then, because it's consistency is what's taking me to the end, instead of being married to an actual number or a percentage.
Oh, you really, okay. I feel like if we allowed all of the participants to actually say anything, I think the church would just, amen. Can we hear it again? Like that, it actually lends right into my next question. This is why I'm so excited about this conversation, because this lends into emotional wellness as well. And you even saying
Yeah.
the practice. When you're thinking about the finances and all of that, yes, it's a practice, but mental health is also the same thing. You gotta be in that practice. So, Asia, I go back to you on this one. How can mindfulness practices such as meditating or journaling be integrated into financial planning to support mental well-being?
So many ways. And I think first, I love everything that you just said, Dasha. And I think it's so important. And I think without thinking about it this way, what you're talking about is creating a habit of saving. And that is psychological, like getting in the process of believing, hey, I can do this. This is important for me. And it kind of goes back to our first question about how do you know when you're going through some feelings? Are you feeling your feelings? So being mindful of what financial behaviors stress you out. For some people, it may be, I hate opening my bills. I hate getting those emails. I hate getting that delinquent notice. I hate moving money, even if I have all the money. I just don't like doing it. And I want to be clear that I think a lot of times when we have these conversations, people tend to believe that people who have, some mental health wrapped up in money, that they don't have money. And that is not the case. This will touch anybody, no matter how much money you have. You could be totally wealthy, financially independent, millions of dollars in investments and in the bank, and feel extremely uncomfortable with money and still want to avoid your money. So this is not about, oh, well, I'll feel better if I have more money. You might, but you also might feel awful and have the money and still feel awful. So what do you do if that comes up? That's when you journal. That's when you take some time to take care of yourself. When you realize I'm going into a stressful event, I know I'm going to be stressful because I'm feeling my feels. I start to sweat. I get uncomfortable. I don't want to look at it. I push it off. We're going to do it. We're going to take a deep breath. And we're going to open those emails. We're going to open those accounts, and we're going to journal before and we're going to journal afterwards. Or we're going to open it, see the number, and deep breathe again. or call up our girlfriend or a money accountability partner and be like, I opened that bill. The credit card bill is crazy. I feel uncomfortable. What am I going to do? And then you're going to create a plan so that in your plan allows you to make sure that you are taking care of yourself as you are working whatever money moves that you need to be making, because it is stressful. And especially for people who are navigating, hey, my financial goals, my dreams, my family. These things are so emotional. I cannot picture anything more emotional than, can I take care of myself and make sure I'm okay? And can I take care of my family? And if you are pushing your money aside because it stresses you out so much, then your stress is just going to continue to compound and compound and compound because you're not taking care of yourself. So journaling, like I said, going on the walk, exercising. And I say exercising, like I want everybody to care about their bodies and love their bodies. Yes. But when I say exercising, it's more because when you're really huffing and puffing out there, you are not thinking about your stress. You cannot be thinking about how anxious you are when you're out there running and moving your body. And that is just a nice break. And then, yes, you get the endorphins, you get that dopamine rush, you feel good, you worked out. So rarely people feel bad about having worked out, but going into it is really complicated and hard. And I speak from personal experience all the time. But those type of self-care activities are going to help you through the harder times when you do have to do something with your money that stresses you out.
Would you also say that, like, when you're doing these things like journaling and working out and really focusing on your mental wellness, it gives you a little clarity also?
Yes. Yeah. And talking to people too, like that's a big one. And in our communities, talking about our mental health and our feelings and money is so stigmatized. It's kind of like, oh, well, you're being vulnerable, you're weak. And it is the complete and utter opposite. I can think of nothing stronger than somebody saying, you know what, I'm really struggling with that. I need help. I need support. And, or can you just listen to me? I feel so alone in this. And having somebody to just hear you, it breaks up the isolation that you built by yourself without realizing that you're building it. And it allows you to feel like, oh, I'm part of a community. I'm part of feeling like somebody else gets this. And this is somebody across the country who's dealing with exactly what I'm dealing with, which is why, like, Dasha, your community is so important because you're giving a space specifically for people to have these kinds of conversations where they may not have been having them before.
Or not feeling comfortable to even express it. That's why I always say it's interesting. Social media has like a double-edged sword.
Yep.
It's got some greatness, but it's also got some negatives. But one of the things that we've seen on the therapy side is that it also has become a type of group therapy for some folks. They may not feel comfortable saying certain things, but they may see somebody else who felt comfortable and feel seen, heard, and valued.
Yep.
Where I'm like, I'm not the only one who's feeling that way. And it's interesting going back to what you were saying, where having this conversation about finances is something that I feel that our parents' generation, it was more of a collective.
Mhm.
And there was more of a feeling comfortable. Like for me, I'm Trinidadian. So I was raised with having my mother be a part of Susus, which is like this whole thing where it's a group of men, women, but for her, it was a group of nurses. And what they did, what they put in, they all agreed that they're going to put in like $100. And each month, that large pot goes to one person. And it kind of goes on that way. And that was their way of helping each other. And it was kind of seen as a norm. It was okay because I know, as for her, for being an immigrant, it was another way of feeling connected and feeling that the understanding and the frustration, the financial stress of being a single mom in the United States as a nurse, like it was a lot. So it was a form of a group therapy session in a way. Like I remember these women sitting around at the table having conversations about what they were stressed about, what bill was coming up, but being able to pile together to support each other. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to have this panel, because this is how we looked at it, as like an extension. This is our way of us coming together. And please, folks, if you have any questions, throw them in. Let's have these conversations because this is the time. And as we are going into the tax season, this is always a time that can be great for some folks who are like, yes, I'm getting a return. Or it's for some folks who are like, I got to pay back. what are some tips and guidelines both of you can give? Because this tends to be a stressful time for some folks.
When I think about tax season, for me, when my children were younger, tax season was the most anticipated season outside of summer for us. And it was because I worked a low income job. I had to take care of two children. I knew for one of the first times in a year, I was going to get a lump sum of money that could push us ahead. I could build a savings, I could pay up some bills, something that could lighten the load for us for the months ahead. So when I think of tax season, I always go back to that mindset. I always go back to mothers. I always go back to how can we use this money at this one time to push us ahead. Of course, when we get it, we want to buy nice things. We want to be able to purchase the things that we probably could not afford previously. That is absolutely okay. That it is okay to do something for yourself. It is okay to add that in your budget. It is okay to spend a portion of that money on yourself. That's perfectly fine. What I also think is important is to think ahead. What bills do you have that are coming up? What bills do you have on a monthly basis that put a lot of pressure on your income? Could you pay those bills up? Can you pay them off? Something that can make the road ahead a little bit easier. So again, when we think of what we can do with tax refunds or what we should do during tax seasons, yes, this is a one-time payment once a year, but I always go back to how could we, and this is what I would say to myself, how could me and my boys eat off of this all year? What can I do that would be beneficial that can set us up for success all year? So if I had to think like outside of just that piece, if I had to think of tangible things for people to do, I would definitely say if you have some debt, pay it off as much as you can. Why? Because if you're paying on it on a monthly basis, that's going to free up your money as the months go forward to do other things. If you don't already have a savings, build you a safety net. Put some money to the side for savings. If you haven't already started investing, use a portion of the money to do that. I do not recommend investing with money that you immediately need right now. So if you need the money right now, take care of what you got going on right now. But after you take care of all of that, if it's something left over, then you can start branching off to putting it in places where you don't need immediate access to it.
That I love everything about that. And I do want to emphasize, we are not saying to folks, do not enjoy yourself. Do
Yeah.
not have those moments of sometimes you do need to just do what you need to do.
Yes.
That is one thing we will definitely emphasize. Taking care of yourself, putting on that oxygen mask is just as
Yeah.
important. So that is not what we are trying to emphasize. These are some tips and tools that you can use that'll be beneficial for you. So that's the one thing I do want to emphasize. And as people are thinking about banking, what banks they should look at, accounts they should look at, savings accounts they should look at. Are there any that you guys recommend that folks can actually, you've seen like, oh, these people have like a really great track record. I know some folks are always trying to find a minority bank that they can actually put their money into. Would love to hear both of your perspectives on that.
I'm going to let Dasha handle most of this, but I'm going to say, please get a high yield savings account. Please, 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 please get a high yield savings account, especially if you're going to, have an extra savings, have an emergency fund, rainy day fund, FIT fund, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter to me, but please put in a high yield savings account because the interest is so much better. And I know so many of us and so many of my clients will just have their money sitting in a regular either checking account and savings account. And that is not helpful. Like make money on your money, boo boo, please move that to a high yield savings account.
Ooh, can you make money on your money? And when we are talking about the high yield savings account, some people think when they go into the bank, oh, I'm getting 1% back. Isn't that great? I'm getting 1% back. Can we be real on what is considered a high yield savings account? Like what's the percentage that you're seeing out there so folks know? Because sometimes banks like to fool people thinking like, hey, but your checking account comes with this. And then you're realizing you're making a penny.
Yep.
When you could have actually been making $1. So would love to know, like, for, and maybe this is more of a Desha question, like, what is considered, like, what's a number that you considered, like, oh, that's a healthy, like, if you see anything between like 3 or 4%, like, what exactly are you thinking is a good number folks should be looking for?
Yes. So right now, I think the highest I've seen the last time I looked, I saw a bank with about a 5%. On average, they are about from 3 to 5% that you're earning on your money just sitting there. And so I'm going to be honest. When I first started really working on my money, I wanted to do everything the lazy way. And although that's not most ideal, trying to be lazy is how I found out about high yield savings account. Because I'm like, oh, my money can sit in there and I don't have to do anything and the money is going to grow. I definitely, want that. So I'm always a champion for a high yield savings account because your money sit there, it grows, you earn money on your money, like Asia said, and the interest rates are much better than the regular traditional savings account that we will see with the bank. And even speaking of that, I think it's so important that we know how to advocate for ourselves when we go into a bank, because at the end of the day, they are selling a product. So you want to know exactly what you need to look for, asking the right questions. A checking account is going to be a checking account. They're going to pretty much be traditional across the board. But when it comes to saving and where you're going to have your money sitting, you want to ask the right questions. And next to interest rates, you want to add, you want to know about fees. You want to know about relationship. You want to know about customer service. You want to know how fast can I get access to my money if I need it. So all of those things matters when we are talking about saving money, because you're saving it for a reason. So when that reason comes up, you want to make sure you can immediately get access to it. But when it comes to high yield savings account, that is always the go-to when you're going to be saving money, especially long term, because the longer that the money sits, the more it's going to grow, the more money you're going to make on just simply letting your money sit there. So I would definitely say, I always recommend people to check out Nerd Wallet and Bank Rate, because they every year they will compare and contrast the top high yield savings accounts so that you can make a choice that's beneficial for you. Because you may find a bank that has 5% interest rate, but then they may have some other factors that, okay, you don't really like those. So while 5% is ideal, the one that has 4.35% has all of the bells and whistles that you actually want. So I would definitely say start with Bankrate and Nerd Wallet, because they are a credible source. They do the compare and contrast. So you can look at all of those high yield savings account and make a decision. If anyone is looking for, is it okay to give a recommendation?
Yes, go ahead.
So I'll just share the ones, that I use. So no affiliate or anything, but I currently use Ally and I use Capital One. I love Capital One because they also have a teen account. And so I could teach my son banking while also using them. But I have a high yield savings account with Capital One and Ally, very user friendly. I have it on autopilot, leave it alone, and I just let the money sit.
I think
I
that's
also have an account with Ally too.
I got one with Capital One. So I hear you on that. And I think the auto payment is something that people don't tap into more. Even if you're putting in that automatic payment $5 a month,
Yep.
it's still $5 more than you would have had. And it's something that doesn't feel like it's taking a burden off of you.
Yep.
It's like one cup of coffee. If that's what you know you can save for the month, that's what you're putting aside. But I love the fact that you were willing to recommend what you use speaks volumes on the platform itself, because you're not getting paid directly from them, but this is your personal experience. And I think the more I love that Capital One does have this feature of being able to have teen accounts, because I think the earlier you start kids in understanding like finances, it is amazing because they get it. Because I take my little one with his piggy bank all the time to the toy store, and you would be amazed how this child's like, that's too expensive, mommy, because then I won't have any money left in my piggy bank. So you know what? We're just going to go with this because it's $2 and then I won't be wasting any money. I will have some money left over. And I'm like, great, look at you making financial decisions, because if mommy pays it, it's just, mommy, you just have endless money. It's a money tree, right? You just shake it and you just give me more money. I'm like, no, little one, mommy works for this. So we have to be able to like have it out, and what's in the budget is in the budget. Now, talking about budget, one of the things we wanted to talk about is how can you start to build generational wealth while on a budget? And I think the savings is part of it, which we know. But I also think for some folks, it may feel like I will never have generational wealth. And I think I'm not speaking for all, but I do feel that if you are the person in the family that is successful financially, it tends to be that you're supporting not just your immediate family, but you're supporting other family members as well. So with all of that, that comes with the culture, how do you still be able to find that space to carve out the ability to create generational wealth?
So what I will say, and it's less about the like logistics, is that one, as we said, the budget to me is giving you space and telling you what you need to do with your money to have generational wealth. So it's not like, oh, I want generational wealth. What am I going to do? It's, I have a budget so that I will have generational wealth. Like they are together. Budget needs a new PR campaign. Budgeting has just been like run through the mud. Like it's a bad thing. Like we're just telling everybody no. Your budget is just to say, hey, you know what? It's really important for me to get that latte. Great. I put it into my budget. It's a line item in my budget. I know I really probably around the time of my cycle, I get a little upset. I'm a little bit more lazy. I don't want to cook at home. So I'm going to put getting takeout into my budget. Like this is not to say you can't enjoy your money. It's to say, okay, I can enjoy $100 of my money. I can't enjoy $400 of my money. So that's going to be really important. And then what I will say is also add a line item for your family. You know, like if you have responsibilities to your family, that is a beautiful thing to be able to give back and be able to support, but you have to have a healthy boundary. And that is so difficult, especially in our community. It's very hard to say, I'm not going to give you all of my extra. I can give you some, but I cannot give you all of my extra because I'm trying to build this generational wealth. So that's going to kind of be my point around like creating a budget, because it's really important that you do it so that you know where this extra money is going and it doesn't get eaten up by other things. And Dasha, I'm going to let you drop knowledge.
Love it. I love it. It's almost like you got the bumper rails. If you've ever gone bowling, your budget is kind of like your bumper rails. When your little one is starting to learn how to bowl for the first time, I always look at it as like, it's just keeping you in the lane. So you're not getting out of the lane, just keeping you in your lane.
Yeah.
So that you can hit that strike at the end.
Yes. So when I think of building generational wealth on a budget, this is a topic that I hold dear to me. Because sometimes it can be discouraging when you feel like you cannot participate in generational wealth conversations because you're not rich or because you don't come from money. So sometimes we feel like this just may be it for us and our family, and no one will ever see their way above this. So a challenge for myself is to look at non-monetary ways that tie into building generational wealth. So that's a conversation about saving and investing. That's a conversation about negotiating, teaching like the younger generation in our families to negotiate. That's a conversation with teaching them how to attend college without taking on student loans, because that ties into how they get to use their money. It looks like a conversation saying, well, so that you don't go into debt as a young adult buying a car, I'll help you with transportation, getting you to and from jobs, taking you to a job interview. These things seem small. We don't always talk about these when it comes to generational wealth, but they all tie in together. I had a younger cousin. He was my aunt's first child to go to college. So when he went to college, I was very proud of him. So immediately I thought, how can I get him to school? I helped him with all of his scholarship stuff, so he didn't have to take on student loans. Now, people may not consider that building generational wealth, but the way I see it is, he's not going to have any debt.
Yes,
He's not going to have any debt when he graduates. And it didn't cost me a dime to help him do that. So that was how I played a part in building generational wealth in my family. Then he's a freshman. I said, okay, I can spare $100 every month. I'll buy his toiletries and I'll buy his food. So now he can go to college, focus on his studies, be knee deep into his books without having to work a job. That $100 may seem small on the grand scale of generational wealth, but that was my way of helping him avoid debt, avoid not having to work multiple jobs while he's also going to college. These gestures seem small, but they all tie into it. So when I think of generational wealth on a budget, there are some things that we can do that don't even cost us a dime. It's really us just passing on the knowledge, helping the other generation in our family avoid some of the things that we ran into because someone didn't tell us. And of course, there are the tangible things like you want to look into investing, you want to look into life insurance. Some of those are low cost options to build generational wealth. But when we think about building generational wealth on a budget, I always say focus on the things that we can do that ties into someone else's money indirectly that costs us nothing. So it may be you giving someone a ride and now they are avoiding having to spend money on Ubers. So now, since they don't have to spend the money on Uber, they can save their $20 every week. And now they're building a savings account. And it costs us nothing but a ride down, the street or across the city. So when I think of building generational wealth on a budget, that's kind of where our mind has to go through. How can we use our current resources and our current knowledge to pass on that wisdom or wealth to the next generation so that they avoid some of the things that we ran into? So then also it doesn't become our problem, well, our financial burden when they do run into it and then they need someone to save us. And then it falls on the person that is more financially responsible or has the more money. So some way or the other, we're going to end up having to get involved. I would rather get involved on the front end than the back end.
Yes.
Everything you said, yes, yes, yes. I really hope people understand because it comes down, it's the same as philanthropy. People think you have to have millions of dollars in order to have impact with philanthropy. That is not true. It is something as simple as even giving someone a ride or offering up opportunities with college applications or even going through FAFSA. I remember at one point I volunteered to just help people out with filling out FAFSA forms because those things are complicated. But that's where you're creating, as you said, the generational wealth. Oh, there's so many more questions, but I've been told we are about to wrap up and I cannot believe time has gone by so quickly. This also lets me know we must do this again because I think there's so much to go off of just what you were talking about in terms of how we as a community can have generational impact with just these simple things, these simple steps that are actually not large. And one of the things I kind of wanted to close off with, because I think this is something that you see a lot with so finances and relationships it's always interesting. One of the things I would like to have talked to both of you about is really how do we practice the financial transparency and the vulnerability and communicating your financial goals in a relationship. I can just use for my example, for my husband and I, we kind of do a little at the end of the year, a self audit where we sit down and we kind of look and see where we've spent money, but also looking to the future of what are our goals and how can we create these small steps to make the goals. But it's a hard conversation to have. Especially if you don't want to be well, I don't want to share you what I got in my account and why you got to know I'm a business. So I would love to hear from both on the mental wellness side of having that conversation, which is a difficult conversation to have, especially you don't know, if you and your partner have never had that full conversation about finances and where their finances are. How do you approach that in a way where both parties can walk away feeling that they've been heard, but not attacked, and coming out with a strategy where they're leaving stronger together than when they started the conversation, if that makes sense?
So this is so loaded and so big, as you can imagine. But what I will say is that I am forever going to be a champion of couples and people who are dating, or if you're thinking about getting serious with someone, talking about money. So there are two things that I tell all of my clients. I will die on this hill. if you are thinking about getting married to somebody, you need to talk about kids and you need to talk about money. And you need to do that as soon as possible. If you know, hey, I love this person, I want to commit, I'm so happy, all of that, like, I love this for you, babe, but you better be talking about money and you better talk about, like, get on the same page about kids. That's two things. Because money is, I think, one of the top 3 stressors in America. And it is probably, if not the first, it bumps up between first and second reason why people get divorced. So you have to communicate about money. And I'm going to get a little provocative, but people are willing to get naked with somebody before they'll disclose, like, their debt, their salary, anything like that. And
Ooh, say that again. That is a t-shirt right there.
and
it really is.
I don't want anybody, listen, if you were living your life and you were having a good time and you're like, hey, this is for a night, not a lifetime. No, you don't need to disclose, like, your financial information for them. Do you, boo? Have a good time. See you later. But if you think, hey, I'm dating this person, we're thinking about moving in, I really care about this person, you need to double check if their financial ways of living work with yours. And if they don't, can you both come to a middle ground and a compromise to move forward? And it goes back to kind of knowing yourself first to then be able to say, hey, I'm going to have this conversation. I'm interested in talking about money. When's a good time for you? Can we create a money date to have this conversation? And when you do have that conversation, keep it on the eye. I feel like how you feel. I want to be able to, what you want to be able to. Some of my goals look like, you are not saying, well, you did this and you spent that. It's accusatory. People leave really defensive and it shuts down the conversation. The whole goal of this conversation is open communication. And it will be awkward at first, but the more you do it, the better the communication will be. And you'll too will be like, oh, did you get up? Like, are you upset? Like, what's going on? Or I just want to check in. I'm really upset. And just get in a habit of really communicating, because the second you don't and it all starts to break down, then people are sitting in resentment and anger and feeling isolated. And that really breaks relationships.
This will be in the book, right?
That's a great question. Yes. I was like, there's a whole chapter on relationships.
If not, can we please, or the second book, can we go into that? Because the fact that you even said, let's have a money date, and, like, let's really talk. And I think this is like, but that's the thing when it comes to relationship. And anyone who has been married for multiple years, when you ask them, what's your success? They always say, we communicate.
It's a big deal. Communication is about everything. Like, money comes up the most because I think it is a huge stressor for people, but it could be communication about anything. Like, please talk to each other. Please, please, please. And your families too. Like, talk.
I love it. Now, just because I've been out of the dating world for a really long time, over 23 years, but what would you say for the date? Like, what would you say? Date 10, when you start to feel like, if you're saying I love you, is that the time? If you're saying I love you, you feel like you're about to say I love you, that should be the time where you're like, I love this person. I really want to have a conversation with this person because I love and respect them. And I can see my future with them. Would you say that's a good time to have the conversation about? Because I don't want people to be like day 2 on the second date being like, so what's your FICO score? What it look like? How much debt you have? That kind of takes it out of the whole chemistry. But what would you suggest, like, is a good time to have, like, that money date?
So I want to challenge the perspective on this just a little bit, because for me, money exists in relationships from the very beginning. From the very first date, money is the deciding factor on where you're going to go. Money is the deciding factor on who's going to pick up the check. Money is the deciding factor on how frequently you walk and date. So money is already on the table from the very beginning. So I think that we should be discussing money very early on. But like you said, not what's your credit score on date 2, but the conversation about money can come up in very soft ways. And that can look like, what was your upbringing like? Did you grow up in a 2-parent household? that doesn't seem like it have anything to do with money, but it can shape their perspective on money, seeing one person being financially responsible for the whole household. So we're talking about money without talking about money. And over time, those conversations would progress. And so then, just like Asia said, when we've been doing this for a minute, now we're gonna have a money date and get down to the nitty gritty and have the for real conversations. See, in the beginning, I was asking you soft baby questions, trying to see if we was gonna make it to day 10. But now we're here now. So now we're gonna have the real conversations. But I always tell people, like, we may not realize it. Money is day one, money is on the table. Because it's the deciding factor on if we're going to a chain restaurant or a 5-star restaurant. It's the deciding factor on if I'm going to see you this weekend or if I'm going to see you 2 months from now when you have to save up to take me on another date. It's already on the table. So we can start, in gentle ways discussing money without it having to be, the tough conversations. But it definitely needs to happen. And I'm a huge believer in you better talk about it now or you're going to fight about it in the courtroom. So, yeah. So let's get the tough conversations out the way now, because some way, sooner or later, there's no escaping. We're going to have the conversation. And I would rather have it when we're in love, when everything, is good and we're both in a calm space and a good mind. And we both care about how the other person comes out on the other side of this. Because I've been through a divorce and money was the leading cause. When you in that courtroom, love ain't on the table no more all the time. That person caring about your well-being may not always be the case. So let's talk about it now while we're in a good space, harmony, love. It's respect, everything is still good, because sooner or later the conversation is going to come up. So I always challenge people, I would rather it come up now than with a judge.
Ladies, I honestly wish I could speak to you longer. Can we please do a part 2? We can talk about this offline, but we got to do another round of this because I'm going to say this entire time that we've been chatting, no one has dropped off.
Yeah.
So that speaks volumes of the conversation was needed. Folks really enjoyed it. And I am beyond grateful for both of you for taking the time to have this conversation, because it's not an easy conversation, but my God, the two of you dropped some gems today that I feel like we took some people to church or whatever kind of gathering place they like, but it was real. And thank you again for your expertise, for your wisdom, for your knowledge. We are beyond grateful for you. And everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. This will not be the only time we do this. As I said, it's a conversation that we really want to have. And I think we've left you with a lot of amazing gems, some great tools. And once we edit the video, we'll make sure and share it out with everyone in case you missed any of the gems that were in here, because I know I'll be rewatching this again just to listen out for those because they were amazing. Thank you both. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon, evening, wherever in the world you are. Thank you again from the Loveland Foundation. If you enjoy what we do, please follow us on social, but you can also go on our website to see the support that we actually do. And if you are inclined and would like to donate $1, we accept dollars. We even accept 50 cents because every coin counts for us to be able to continue to support the thousands of Black women and girls and non-gender conforming folks that we do actually support. And it's because of our amazing community. So on that note, everyone have an amazing evening. And thank you both again. This was everything today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was so lovely.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.